Hello and welcome to Literary Notes, a podcast by the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. I'm your producer, Nathan Ureta. Our guest today is fantasy and romance writer Katie Cross. Getting her start publishing her work online, Cross has since self-published more than 100 fantasy novels and short stories. She has very generously donated her work to the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. Thank you, Katie. She was interviewed remotely by library volunteer Abby Travers, who does great work in our Braille department. She also assisted Cross during her writing process. No spoilers in this intro, though. I'll let you learn how she helped on your own. I've got an announcement to make about a book we covered in an earlier episode, but first, here's Abby and Katie's conversation.
Hello, I'm Abby Travers, a volunteer Braille proofreader at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. I have the immense pleasure of interviewing author Katie Cross. Katie Cross is a writer living in Montana. She got her start publishing her writing directly online and soon after self-published her debut novel, Miss Mabel's School for Girls, in 2014. Since then, she has independently published more than 100 titles. Among them are fantasy novels and short stories, including the Dragonmaster Trilogy, the Sister Witches series, and the Network series, which she has graciously all donated to the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. Well, welcome, Katie. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I have some questions, and we'll just kind of go from there. And so my first question is, what or who made you realize that you wanted to become a writer? And what was your very first story about?
Oh, I love this question. So I was that nerdy kid in school that read all the time. I don't know if many in your readership or your listeners will remember the AR program. It was advanced reader program. You could read books and then get points and then go buy stuff at the school store for it as a way to get people to read. And I would blow it out of the water. I would have so many points. I would have to buy my friends things because I couldn't spend all the points because I just love to read. And I never really thought of it much as a career because I wanted to be a nurse. So I went to college, got my bachelor's in nursing. I was a cardiac nurse and a pediatric nurse. And then I married the military. I married a guy in the US Army, and we had to move around every 6 months for a while. And I couldn't really work as a nurse at that time. So I was 25 years old, living in Southern Alabama in the United States, and had nothing to do because I couldn't get a job. And so I decided to go back to my former love of writing and reading. For as much as I read, I would write stories also. So I'd read a story and I'd write a fan fiction version of it. And I decided to go back to that. So I just started writing this book and I put it online. It was on a Wattpad-like website called Fan Story. And I wrote the first chapter. It won this little insight award, and I just kept going with it. And it ended up becoming Miss Mabel's School for Girls, which is the first book that I published, and I'm most known for that novel. So I kind of fell into it out of necessity. And then I loved Bianca and the world of Alcara so much that I worked as a nurse and I wrote up until I had my first child. And then I was like, I think I'm going to put away nursing for now and focus on being a mom and writing books. And that's what I've done ever since. It's been such a cool journey the whole time.
What an amazing, cool origin story. I did something similar called the Reading Challenge. It was, it wasn't points, but you were in this competition and you had to read a certain amount of books, and it was, fun times.
And it's a cool way to get kids to be excited about reading, and it got me into books. And then I was just reading because I loved it and I could get points and they didn't really matter as much.
Yeah,
but
right.
I love the theory, right? It's really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important, especially these days, for anybody to be interested in reading.
Yeah, for sure. And then to answer your second question, it was the inspiration for the story. Is that correct?
Or what was the first story you ever wrote about? I don't know, in third grade. I don't know.
Yeah, I started writing stories in first grade. I would write them in my journal. I would write them on paper. I would paste books together. I think a lot of writers were like that. Just from the beginning, we were just kind of called to that work. But the first story that I ever wrote to completion that was outside of fan fiction, I would write NSYNC fan fiction or fan fiction around Lord of the Rings. I would do whatever fan fiction to whatever I was into, because I could just the people are real, so it just made it easy for me to write stories about them.
Yeah.
I think outside of that, it was a fantasy story that I developed that I don't even think they would read to prisoners to torture them, because it really was just so terrible. And it was probably like 13 or 14 years ago now. And I remember finishing it and being like, I don't know if I like this story. And I
Yeah.
gave it to my father-in-law, and he was like, yeah, I could see some places for improvement. Like, he was trying to be really nice. It was so bad. That was the book before my first book, which ended up being, the next book was Miss Mabel. So I always tell authors, if you're writing and the book is bad, maybe it's the book before your first one.
Or like do another draft, or
Like edit,
edit,
for sure.
really highly edit. Yeah.
Yeah, really highly edit. That needed really high edits.
Or rewrite completely. That's great. So do you listen to music while you write?
I do. I love listening to like cellos right now. So there's some like dark cello ambiance videos online that I really like to listen to. I tend to do non-lyrical stuff because I end up singing and getting distracted.
Yeah.
Lyrics. But I do love to match what I'm writing, like the vibe of what I'm writing, to the vibe of the music I'm listening to. So if I'm writing like a clean contemporary romance, it's going to kind of be slow and soft. If it's like it's an epic fantasy or like battle scene, then it'll be like hard driving music. But it's typically like an ambiance or some non-lyrical soundtrack.
Yeah, that makes sense. Lyrics are definitely distracting. I've found, for me, when I've tried to write that lyrics, I just can't do it. It used to be for me, it was the Thor 2 soundtrack, interestingly enough. It just was, it just got me in the mood to write, or even if I was writing papers, it worked. I'm not sure why, but
I'm going to try it. Thor 2, okay.
Yeah, it was the Thor the Dark World,
Yeah, soundtracks, I love it because they're so cinematic and fast and exciting, and I feel like that can match our work so much without distracting. I think it also helps me immerse into it in my head a bit more without getting pulled out when like a singer changes or whatever. Like I can sink in and stay for a while.
Yeah, makes sense. And there's so many ambiance videos like on YouTube. I'm not a big ASMR fan because I don't know, I find it distracting, but
yeah, me too. Like, what are you whispering?
Why are you clacking, your keyboard? But some of the movie ambience ones, like the Lord of the Rings ones, are kind of nice.
Yeah, I really love those because they kind of sometimes combine. They'll take parts of the soundtrack with like external noises, like nature sounds. I really love that mesh. I feel like it's really soothing to listen to.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess my next question is, what gave you the idea to write about underrepresented characters and themes, like blind characters, or I know for our listeners, there might be slight spoilers for Katie's books. So if you haven't read her books, maybe listen to this later after you've read some. I know that you have one LGBTQ couple in one of your books. And what kind of challenges do you face writing characters with differing perspectives than your own?
Yeah, so I have several LGBTQ plus couples and characters. The one main one that I think is most pertinent to this interview is really about Sana. So Sana is one of the most beloved characters in the fantasy world of Alcara that I write in. And it is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's totally worth it to have the spoiler. Sana loses her sight when she's, I think, like 18 years old.
Yeah.
And it's more sudden than not. So there's an event that happens, like some external trauma to her eyes, and she ends up losing sight. And I knew that at some point in her life, Sana came into the story as an old woman. So when I was writing Miss Mabel School for Girls that we spoke about, Sana was an old woman in that series. And eventually my readers loved her so much that they wanted Sana's origin story. And so I had to decide, well, like, at what point does Sana lose her sight? And I remember at the time thinking, I hardly ever see main characters that don't have their sight, that are blind. I hardly ever see main characters kind of go through that process, but I was really daunted by that because it's not my lived experience. And so I read a whole bunch of books about different ways to lose sight, the way that I could make this happen, what that experience is like. And then I went into some different communities with blind people who had lost their sight, and I reached out to some authors of books talking about having lost their sight in the process, and gaining their independence being blind and learning basically how to be blind. And I emailed with a bunch of them, and then I found these two sisters in Colorado that had lost their sight and were editors specifically towards books where people lose their sight. And so I was able to work really closely with people in that community and have them help me kind of walk through that process. Now, that was just for 3 books. So in the Dragonmaster trilogy, Sana has her sight in the first book. The traumatic event happens in the second. By the end of the third, she completely loses her sight. But there's another 10-book series that follows that one called The Sister Witches that involves Sana. And that's when she goes through the process of really sort of adjusting, grieving, and learning. And that's when Abby and Jade came into here. So Abby, you and Jade entered my radar to kind of help me write that transition for Sana. So that I could go through.
Yeah, it's been such a cool experience for me because there's not a lot of books that are writing, there's not a lot of authors that are writing accurate representation of being blind. And so the fact that you went through all of this to write accurately really means a lot to me personally, and I'm sure to a lot of the new readers that you're getting who are also blind. And I just really appreciate that because there's not a lot of options out there. I mean, I'm sure you did your research and saw, the fiction book where, a society goes blind and how ridiculous that was. and and there are, blind authors who try to write their lived experience, but it's just not very, a big deal or anything. And so it's and I really appreciate that you didn't give Sana her sight back magically. That it wasn't I'm just gonna, wave a wand and she has her sight back. And because that, that doesn't usually happen in real life. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. And so I think it's really great for people who are losing their sight, who are fantasy fans, to have a book to read.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up because I remember at the beginning of this when I decided to do the Sister Witches, and I said to the two of you, like, I need your help. Like, I can't do this without you. We got on a call and I basically said, like, tell me everything not to do. What would you love to see? What should Sana go through? And you guys were able to kind of walk me through it. And I remember thinking so clearly, like, magic, there could be some way that magic might restore her sight, but I feel like that would take away so much from Sana because she has all this growth and learning, and that's not the experience I wanted for my readers. Like, I wanted them, like, readers who were previously sighted or always blind or whatever, all these things, I wanted them to have this connection with Sana, and I wanted her to stand out amongst my characters in a very special way. So I was really grateful you guys had said, like, please don't magically give her sight back, because it hadn't registered as an idea to me. And then I was like, oh, I can see why we did that. The only thing that I did is Sana is a dragon rider. She loves her dragons. And at some point, I can't even remember when, but she's able to
see through her dragon's eyes, right?
Yeah, well, no, I don't even think she sees
okay.
that. She just sees the dragons as outlines.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought about having it so she has, like, sight through her dragon Ludius, but in the end I decided not to. But she can see lines of light where the dragons are when they're close to her, and that's all that she ever got back. The rest of it is she's just blind.
Yeah, which actually makes a lot of sense because as far as I know, and I was born blind, so I don't have that lived experience as Jade does, who, went blind a little bit later in life. Not by much, but that I think you have visual memory as, if you've ever seen anything and you go blind, like if you've had a level of vision. So it makes a lot of sense to me that she would have these outlines that she'd be able to see still.
Sure.
Even personally, like sometimes I see light that isn't there, and it's because I
Mhm.
can see light. I guess it's very interesting
It's so
phenomenon.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get into it, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I really love Sana, but I would love to talk about Bianca as well because I've been reading her books and she's gone on this incredible journey. I mean, she starts out as like, this sarcastic, maybe a little bit of a chip on her shoulder. Also she's gonna die, so she's kind of like doing everything before that might happen. And at the point that I'm at, she's been kidnapped, which is not great. And so it's just like the journey she's been on has been a lot of fun. So
Yeah, so Bianca Monroe is my main character in Miss Mabel School for Girls. She is who most people follow me for. And that was where you guys started with translating these books into Braille. So Bianca is a witch in a medieval fantasy world called Alcara. She lives in a haunted forest named Leadhamwood, and she's inherited a curse that will kill her on her 17th birthday unless she convinces the head witch of this magical school, Mabel, to break the curse. But Mabel refuses and forces Bianca to fight for her life. So Bianca comes in pretty hot in the story. She's basically enrolling in this magical academy, this really prestigious, difficult to get into magical academy, in order to fight for her life. She wants to win a competition, become Miss Mabel's student, and then convince Mabel to remove this curse. And in the end, it ends up this kind of dark academia, magical academy story about a witch that's fighting for her own life. I was really intent that Bianca not be a chosen one. I didn't want her to have special powers, none of that. I just wanted her to thrive based on pure determination, right? Like she was just like, I have to save my own life. Let's do this. And 12 books later, she is continuing to do that. Like she's
yeah,
just
it's just
continuing to grow.
amazing. Yeah, that like 12 books, and I've barely scratched the surface, and I don't think that even like I don't think the newer books are up in audio yet, but hopefully that will happen soon because I know that you know, she goes on quite a journey, and I guess my other question is, how do you come up with your character names and places? There's so many. How do you keep track of them as well?
That's a great question. So before I answer, all of Bianca's books are available in audio. And so they should be out there in audio. But if we need to get some for the library system, we can definitely make that happen too. They should have gone through, but we can check on that.
Yeah, I can't remember how many got uploaded, so we can check on that for sure. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, so the fantasy names is funny. So for years there was this fantasy name generator online where you could like go online and say generate 10 fantasy names or something. I mean, this was like 10 years ago, and it would generate some random stuff. And sometimes I would do that just to see what it came up with, but it would sometimes come up with these words and I'm like, I can't even pronounce that. Like if
Yeah,
I can't
exactly.
pronounce it, my readers can't, right?
Yeah.
But it would spur some ideas and I would make it off that. But a lot of it is I just went to Google Translate and I would choose English to Latin and I would choose a few keywords. So the word leadum, I believe, I could be a little bit off here, but it has some roots in death in Latin. And when I was writing about Leadham Wood, this forest that Bianca lives in that has trees twice the size of sequoias, it was just a really foggy, sort of creepy place in the part of it where she lives. And I think I was looking up words that were similar to that, and I found Leadham, and I was like, Leadham Wood, I like that. And I kind of did that. I think I remember one time when I was first putting this world together, I just like Googled city names in different countries and like pick some. Like I think Chatham for Chatham Castle, which is a castle in my fantasy world, like came from England or something. So for a while, I just kind of poked around the world in different languages and found it. And eventually, I did not do this soon enough. I highly wish I had done this earlier. I got a spreadsheet and I just started keeping track of every name and every location. so that I could like go back. So I have all of the names alphabetized on a single spreadsheet based on the fantasy world. So all of Alcara is in a spreadsheet. I have another fantasy world called Alestra that's on a spreadsheet. And that helps me just keep track. So I don't have like 5 Ashleys or something. You know?
Yeah, you're not using, like, you can definitely reuse a name, but not, you don't have like 2 Ashleys in the same scene or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And even, the Sister Witches series with Sana and Isadora growing from like their 20s to their 70s, that's 10 books.
Yeah.
And there's a really big list of characters in those 10 books. And there was also 3 books before that about those characters. So then being able to say, wait, what was that one character's name in book 6? And that just gives me something to scroll through really quickly so I don't have to go find book 6 or whatever.
Yeah, you don't have to reread, passages.
Yeah.
And I'm
And then
sure, you have a team of people, checking those things. You have great people, so
yeah, I have a really cool
they're gonna say, oh yeah, you used that name already.
Yeah, or the other hard thing is details about the character, whether it's eye color or hair length or whatever it is that they look like. I try to keep track of that in that same spreadsheet. So each character gets a column, and like one row is character traits versus like Bianca has kind of a dry sense of humor. She comes out a little sarcastic, but she softens when she's not about to die. Lita, Bianca's best friend, has 2 differently colored eyes. So I keep track of those kinds of things in there too, so that my beta reading team and then my editing team can help me stay really consistent. Like, I think there's one book where Bianca's love interest, Merrick, has both hazel eyes and green eyes, which isn't necessarily wrong, but he went from like emerald to like hazel. And
yeah,
I was
it's
like,
a little bit.
We missed that
one. Hand wavy, magic. I don't know. He used a transformation spell that went wrong, or
exactly. We'll do that. We'll say that. Sure.
And are there any names that you just come up with, like people that you've known, or do you just try not to do that?
I mean, there are names in there for people that I know, but I haven't like created it solely off of them. The only name where I met someone and their name was so unique, I ended up using it because I was like, I have never seen this, is the name Jody. But it was a male and he was Jote.
So interesting.
Yeah, so he's in the network series. He's well, I'm not gonna say what he is, but his name, but it looks like Jote.
Yeah.
A lot of my readers are like, who's Jote? I'm like, it's actually pronounced Jody. And normally you would see it as Jody, but because it was Jote, I thought that was really fun. And so I put it in there. And that's the only person I can think of that in real life had an interesting enough name. I put him in my fantasy book. I don't think he even knows.
I mean, that's fair. Like, but that's, I like that because you're not, there's no expectations of, oh, this person, I accidentally wrote this evil person and I actually know somebody in real life who's amazing. Sorry.
The main character Mabel, my villain, she's actually based off of a real life friend in looks. So and my friend knows this. So when I was writing Miss Mabel's, I worked with this friend. We were both youth leaders at our church, and her name is Brooklyn. She is amazing. She's one of my favorite people, and she's beautiful. She looks just like Mabel. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, but she is like kindness personified, and Mabel is pure evil. And so
absolutely.
I ended up having to tell her, hey, I based my villain off of you, but it's not how I see you. I just like, you're perfect and wonderful and kind and so good, and Mabel's so evil. I just don't want you to think this. She thought that was so funny that she actually ended up reading it with her book club, and she dressed up as Mabel.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Like,
yeah,
it was great. It was really fun.
I'm glad that she had a good reaction.
Yeah, she thought it was so funny. She thought it was really funny. And I actually had a company approach me and ask if they could generate some like social media stuff to like, they want to try some things out. And I was like, okay. And they asked if there was someone that Mabel was based off of. And I was like, well, it's actually based off my real life friend. And she gave permission for them to take pictures of her and I guess it was AI. This was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm.
But they used those pictures to create some images that I never ended up using in any kind of advertising, but I sent them to her so she could see them, like what she would look like as a medieval witch. So she's been super cool about
Oh,
it.
that's great. That's it's so interesting when uh like you have to kind of decide what projects you're going to reach out to, or who reaches out to you, and then you have to decide yes or
Yeah,
no.
yeah, for sure.
Because I'm sure you've gotten some weird things.
Yeah, I've had some really amazing companies reach out to work with me. I've had some awesome partnerships, but there's also been some that have like started out really cool and then they just disappear, or like random things kind of happen. So we're pretty cautious how we approach things like that anymore. But for the most part, everyone that's always reached out to us is just really fun partners.
hmm I'm just so excited that more people are reading your books. That just like is
Yeah.
so cool to me. And
Well, you have worked really hard to get these books translated for the Braille Library, which just tickles me and delights me so much. So you are actually a big part of that. I really appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. Have you been getting? I know a lot of authors have been getting, you know, uh, AI scams like, "Oh, I love your
Oh,
book. Can
all
I
the time.
can I do art?" Or it's
Yeah, like probably
so.
3 to 5 emails a day
Mhm.
about stuff like that. And a lot of it is like scammers just using AI to write their emails.
Mhm.
Uh, and then like they want to say like, oh, we have this book club that wants to feature you. And so I got one yesterday. It was like, my name is Brianna and I run this like book club on Goodreads. And I was like, this seems really fishy to me. But I looked at it because it wasn't written in the like normal AI way that most of these scammers are. It was pretty
Mhm.
short, and her email kind of tracked back to it. And I looked, and there was a Goodreads group, and there was one of the main people was Brianna, spelled the same way. And so I like tentatively replied, but then they're like, it's only $200, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Um.
So they're just scamming like crazy right now. It's
Yeah.
pretty wild. But I just like, I don't even open them. I just delete them and
Mhm.
block them.
Yeah, that's good. I just kind of wondered because there's so much with AI and writers and artists, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but
Mhm.
it's just a wild time for sure. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting to see it rolling out into the world and see who's affected. I think the next 10, 15 years are going to be really interesting in publishing as the market continues to adapt and evolve. I will say there's a lot of people afraid right now, and I completely understand that fear. I think writers right now have big hurdles, but I also think there is a lot of like people are still reading. There's a lot of goodness and hope out there, and the market always fixes itself in some way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens just in the next couple of years, like
mhm.
where the market shifts and what happens. I think there's a lot of reason for optimism and good cheer in the publishing world.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's so hard for me as a reader to see, you know, articles that are like, oh, reading is declining, kids aren't learning to read anymore. And I'm just like, really? How much of this is really, sensationalism, and how much is true? I mean, you have,
Right.
young children and they read, I'm sure. And uh, I don't know. What are your opinions about, just the, quote unquote decline of reading?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of propaganda out there to just drive clicks and the money that people make from that. And I think that is a hot topic right now. Perhaps reading is declining. I know that in my community, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that. Kids are all different. My kids are the children of an author, so they don't have a prayer of getting out
Right.
of life without books. We're actually going to the library after I'm done with this interview. So I think there's a lot of I've had people ask me like, well, I don't think, do you count graphic novels as books? And I was like, absolutely. If they're looking at a book and turning pages and reading words, like I'm great if it has pictures. I just want
hmm
them in story
Yeah.
and learning to use that imagination and learning how to have empathy because they're experiencing something with or through a character whatever that looks like, I think is really powerful. And this current generation of kids is just truly amazing. They're phenomenal. They're just amazing kids. They're smart. From what I see, they're very empathetic with the kids that my kids hang out with, and the dynamics that I see. I also live in Montana, and we live in the mountains. We're not that far from civilization by any means, but we live up on the mountain bench. And so I'm around a lot of mountain kids, and they're just creative, and they're strong, and they're outside, and they're playing hard, and they're reading books. And I have nothing but excitement for the upcoming generation. I think they're going to do big things.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I appreciate like any positivity about these
Yeah.
things because it's so easy to be like, "Oh, this is depressing."
Yeah, for sure. I think
And
there's so much hope out there.
yeah, I think for me, I love that as an adult, I can still enjoy young adult books. And I think something I would love to mention, we're talking about kids, is your children's books that you did based on
Yes.
Merrick and Bianca. They are available at the library to be checked out like physically. Basically, how it works is the print book has Braille overlaid on each
Mm-hmm.
of the pages, and so a blind parent could read it to their sighted child. A blind child who is learning to read could read it with their parent. It's a really cool, neat thing, and uh, just maybe talk about that a little bit, like your process and your co-author and things like that.
Yeah. What I love so much about, we have two children's books, we have plans for a third, potentially fourth, is they're all written, produced, and put into the world by women from different parts of the world entirely, and that we have them in three different languages. So the first book is titled Bianca the Brave. Kaylee Mills wrote the text, and she said, this book popped into my brain. I don't know, would you want to do something with it? She works for me in several capacities, and I was like, let's do it. So we did a Kickstarter. And then Lila Savalainen from Australia, she is an illustrator. She did the illustrations. Andy Gonzalez from Guatemala did the Spanish translation. And then we have a French translation from one of Kaylee's friends in French Canada. And Kaylee lives in Canada and I live in the US. And then you guys put it into Braille also in the US in Seattle. So we have all of these women coming together to create these amazing products and to bring Bianca and the magic of this fantasy world into different languages in different parts of the country, and also different kinds of books. The images are gorgeous. Lila is one of my rock star readers, and so she knows the depths of Alcara almost better than I do, probably. And
Mm-hmm.
so she would just like hide things in the pictures. Like if you're really looking, you get to find little hidden gnomes in the forest or faces, or it's really fun for kids to kind of look through, or parents. And the story itself is really just like Bianca. It's about a girl who's growing and learning, right? She is running through the forest one day, and she discovers a fire, and she has to help this little bird. So it's written for a target age between 4 to 8 years old. Kaylee goes through different parts of Canada now and then and does all of these school visits. She is an educator in Canada for young kids. So it's just really a phenomenal book. The second book is Merrick the Master. Merrick is Bianca's love interest, and it's about him learning when to pick up the sword and when to put the sword down. The books were both launched on Kickstarter, same people putting it together and doing all the work for it. So they're just really, really fun. And I was so excited to hear you guys picked those up because it's such a fun way to bring families together, especially when you have it written in Braille.
Yeah, and I didn't have the Braille, but I had the ebook at that point. And so my mom, just grabbed the pictures to me, and I was like, wow, this is so, like, cool for kids because, they're not old enough for your YA fantasy yet. And
Yeah.
the fact that there's, like, something for them is really amazing. I really enjoyed them. They were adorable. And I feel like I need to reread them now that I've read, 3 of the network books. I feel like I might get a little bit more out of them. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Now that you kind of know Merrick better.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. And I guess one thing I wanted to ask you about is so your contemporary romance, which is it's also being worked on, into Braille. I think we are maybe going to start with a coffee shop series.
Oh, fun.
Hopefully, that was kind of your. Did you start writing romance or fantasy first?
I started with Miss Mabel's, yeah, and just sort of on accident branched into contemporary romance. And I have 3 series in contemporary romance now. So I kind of pop between the two. Sometimes I need a break from all the magic and world building and epic stories and like figuring out what does this world's history look like, and I just want to write something that's really fun and easy, and so I'll go into a contemporary just to kind of like have a palette cleanser, and it gives me different audiences to kind of work with marketing, so that I have different marketing funnels running at different times, which is really fun. So I have the coffee shop series, which is a clean contemporary romance series that is 10 books. It's a small town mountain romance. And then I have a 5-book, the Health and Happiness Society series, about 5 friends. They're in this like group. It's kind of their romances in their lives. And then a 3rd series launches August 7th. It's called the Iron Creek Ranch series. And the first book is The Cowboy and the Baby. So it's another clean contemporary romance series.
And then you also have a romantasy series.
Yes.
That is not, to do with Alcara, but it's fantasy, and I definitely need to get reading that. I started the first one, and it was really good, and I just need to keep reading. So
they're chunks. Like, they're big books. The audiobooks are like 17 to 20 hours. I mean, for me, those are pretty big books. My contemporary romances come in at like 8 to 9 hours, but some of the romantasy novels got really big and they were much longer. So yeah, I also have a 5-book romantasy series called the Isle series. The first book is The Smoke and the Sea. It is in Kindle Unlimited and Audible right now. It's just available in those 2 places. It's a really fun 1700s Age of Sail tale that you kind of really get to sink into and enjoy. A really thick romance plot line with magic in the background.
And like the most adorable little dragools. Like,
yeah,
they're just adorable.
Yeah, they're
dragons.
Butterfly-sized pocket dragons. They're so cute.
Yeah, I really that was so cool. And I'm looking forward to reading that. So I guess to wrap up here, what are some future projects our listeners should know about? I mean, you kind of already mentioned the contemporary romance. Anything else?
Yes, always. There's always something more. Currently we've talked a lot about Bianca. She has 12 books across 3 different bundles. Basically, we have 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and 9 through 12. We are going to do 13 through 16. Probably in 2027, maybe 2028. So there's at least 4 more Bianca books coming out. I have a 10-book romantasy serial. So that's going to be much smaller stories. Instead of big novels, there will be 10, 35,000 word or less kind of stories. There will be 10 of them in a longer, more like episodic TV series kind of feel. And then the Clean Contemporary Romance series, a new book will launch every 4 months with that one. So we have a lot of like fun projects coming up always because we just love books around here. And the next book that launches is The Cowboy and the Baby. It's on August 7th.
That's incredible. I'm like just always excited when you have a new book, even if I'm like 10 books behind and I'm like, I can't read it yet.
I know, there's so many books. It's impressive that anyone can keep up. I still have readers like always keeping up no matter what. It's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this and, talking about all of these components of your writing. And where can we find out more about you and your stories?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. To have you interview me is such a delight, and to do anything for this Braille Library, I will do whatever I can to support it. It's such an amazing endeavor. So thank you for putting my books into Braille and bringing awareness to them and giving me this interview. It truly is an honor. If you guys want to learn more, you can go to my website at katiecrossbooks.com. That's all of my books are listed there. Even if I have a couple of ebooks that are only available in Kindle Unlimited, and some audiobooks are only available on retailers off of my website. But you can still get to those websites from my website, or you can find me anywhere ebooks, audiobooks, or paperbacks are sold. But if you are on social media, my Instagram account is at Katie Cross Books.
And you also are so amazing with all of your fans. If you have Facebook, you can join a group called Witchery, which is just incredible. I love that group. It has, all of, everything that happens, you announce there. And
It's really fun.
Coffee with Katie is a Zoom that you do pretty regularly, and that's always a highlight for me. So
Yeah, so I have a young adult fantasy group that kind of revolves around the world of Alcara called The Witchery. We have a lot of fun in there. If you type in Facebook, The Witchery Katie Cross, or the network series, it should pop it right up. And then I've had to put it on halt for the summer because we're ripping my house apart and putting it back together. But I do a thing called Coffee with Katie. It usually works best during the school year when my 8 and 11-year-old are at school.
Mhm.
I'm currently recording in my car.
Right.
We have contractors and electricians and my kids. But we do Coffee with Katie, which is where we all get on a Zoom for just an hour and we just chat about books, and everyone gets to tell us something about what's going on for them. And it's become a really fun friendship when we're able to do it. In fact, they're starting to meet without me, doing coffee without Katie, because I haven't been able to because of my house. So it's a really fun friendship, and we would love to have any of you guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, thank you so much again. This has been
Yes.
such a cool experience, and yeah, that's it from me, I think. So
Miss Mabel's School for Girls, the first book in the network series, is available for download in the catalog of the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. You can get it as an audiobook with the class ID DBC 31755, or as a Braille download with the class ID BRC 02103. Flame, the first book in the Dragonmaster trilogy, is available for download as well. You can get it as an audiobook with the class ID DBC 31847. We'll let you know in a later episode when it's ready for download as a Braille book. And a book we discussed in a previous episode is newly ready for download. We sat down with Anna Zevarts last year about her book When Driving is Not an Option, Steering Away from Car Dependency. You can now find it in our catalog with the class ID DBC 30189. If you have any questions or comments about the library, or to see if you qualify for our services, visit WTBBL.org or call us at 206-615-0400 or toll free at 800-542-0866. This episode of Literary Notes is a production of the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library based in Seattle, Washington. Today's interview was conducted by Abby Travers. I'm your producer, Nathan Ureta. Thanks for listening.